Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. I'm Chaim Ben Pesach. We have another very important program with the great David Ben Moshe. We're going to be discussing the outrageous so-called convictions against Donald Trump, but we're also going to be discussing how American Jews are betraying Israel. You're going to see the results of a shocking new poll that came out. You won't believe it. Only 5% of American Jews in the poll oppose the creation of an independent Palestinian terrorist state, which would be suicide for Israel. Only 5% of American Jews are against it. Just so disgusting. Anyway, it's going to be a rough program. For those of you who don't like when I go off on self-hating Jews, you're not going to like this one because we're going to tell the truth about what's going on because we stand with Israel. And remember, in the end, we're going to win. Despite the fact that sometimes you get bad news on this program, in the end, we are going to win. Make no mistake about it. God promised us the good guys are going to win, and the bad guys are going to get what's coming to them. But first, this program is dedicated to a refuah shlema, complete recovery, for Liat Bat Shifra, Niv Ben Bina, Yitzchak Ben Sarah, Sharon Mitman, Shlomo Ben Sarah, Dorit Bat Sarah, Ruven Ben Shoshana, and Ruth Bat Sarah. And to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls, for Malka Bat Meir, Allegra Bat Shlomo, Daniel Nankin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Zeb Ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Ruven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Harab Meir Kahana, Harab Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi, Bat Liba, Yosef Ben Meir, Robert Mitman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, and Charles Zolat. Okay, we're going to be discussing the fact that Donald Trump was convicted on these phony, trumped-up, ridiculous charges against him. 34 counts of nonsense. And now he's a convicted felon. We're going to be discussing all of that. But first, 6 million Jews were murdered because American Jews did nothing during the Holocaust to save them. American Jews could have prevented the Holocaust. If the United States had bombed the rail lines leading to Auschwitz and the death camps and had taken the action that the United States was fully capable of taking, the United States and Britain are guilty here. 6 million Jews would not have been murdered. There wouldn't have been a Holocaust. American Jews did nothing when that happened. Nothing. The same American Jews who are so active on behalf of all of their enemies in the so-called civil rights movement and in all types of left-wing movements and for all types of left-wing anti-Jewish causes, those same American Jews did nothing when 6 million Jews were burned and gassed and tortured in the most brutal crime in human history, the Holocaust. And now we have another example of American Jewry, of what they're really like. Remember, 78% of American Jews voted for a black Muslim Jew hater, Barack Hussein Osama, who wants to destroy Israel and did everything he could to destroy Israel when he was president, to enable Iran to build nuclear bombs, to pressure Israel to go back to pre-1967 suicide borders, everything, to freeze Jewish building in Judea and Samaria, everything he could do to destroy Israel, Barack Hussein Osama, the black Muslim Nazi, did. And 78% of American Jews in 2008 voted for him. And I think he got 74% in 2012 of the Jewish vote. The same Jews who voted for Roosevelt, when Roosevelt deliberately did everything he could to enable the German Nazis to exterminate as many Jews as possible.
A B-17 bombed one of the camps by accident because they got lost and they thought that was a target. And they got into a lot of trouble because of that, because the orders were not to touch the camps or the tracks leading to the camps.
They deliberately wanted the Jews murdered, period. And American Jews voted enthusiastic. They loved Roosevelt. They adored him, despite the fact that he murdered 6 million Jews. Now, the latest poll from the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. You always have these nice names for all these self-hating Judenrat Kappa organizations. Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Their latest poll, only 5% of the people answering the poll were against creating a Palestinian terrorist state in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. The other answer is, well, we should create it with this restriction, with that. What restrictions? Nobody pays attention once you have an independent state to any restrictions. It would be suicide for Israel, period. Israel would be 6 to 9 miles wide. The terrorists would be 1 mile from the Israeli airport. What happened on October 7th would happen in every part of Israel nonstop. There'd be a Holocaust, God forbid. But only 5% of American Jews are against it. Well, only 5%. By the way, another poll taken years ago showed that only 5% of American Jews identified Israel as an issue that they consider when they vote in presidential elections. They don't even think about Israel. Only 5% even consider the issue of Israel in presidential elections. They're so worried about women's right to choose and the transgenders. And what are some of the other issues? Oh, the rights of migrant workers. All these left-wing evil causes. That they're very worried about. The survival of Israel, which the whole world depends upon, they couldn't care less about that. These filthy... Any Jew who is a self-hating Jew is the scum of the earth. Jews who are self-hating Jews against their own people, they are the lowest, worse than the worst Gentile anti-Semites. A third of the people in this poll, the same poll that shows only 5% are against a Palestinian terrorist state. And by the way, there are no Palestinians. There is no Palestine. No such people has ever existed. A third of the people in the poll, a third of the Jews in the poll, agreed with the statement that Israel's committing genocide against the Arab Muslim Nazis in Gaza. Israel's committing genocide. The Arab Muslim Nazis openly say we're going to finish Hitler's job. We're going to wipe all the Jews off the face of the earth. We're going to make the world Dar al-Islam. We're going to exterminate all non-Muslim infidels. And the Jews who are defending themselves against this, they're the ones committing genocide? The Arab Muslim Nazis slaughter millions of their fellow Arab Muslim Nazis. In the Iran-Iraq war, 2 million Muslims were slaughtered by their fellow Muslims. You see anybody accusing Iran and Iraq of genocide? 2 million Muslims were slaughtered in that war. In Syria, 1 million Muslims were slaughtered by their fellow Muslims in the Syrian civil war. 500,000 were slaughtered in Lebanon in the Lebanese civil war. That went on, by the way, for about 30 years. Did anybody accuse them of genocide? Are there courts in The Hague being convened to study those issues and to issue arrest warrants for the Hitlers in those countries, the dictatorial Hitlerian leaders in those countries that perpetrated that against their own people? But Israel, defending herself, and in a very mild is not the word, in a cowardly, pathetic way, in the worst way, Israel's not exerting 1% of the force that she should be exerting against the Arab Muslim Nazi enemy. Not 1%, they're not doing 1% of what they should be doing there. And Israel's accused of genocide. 52% in the poll said they support Joe Biden for president. The late Joe Biden, they want him for president. 52% said they support him. Only 11% in the poll said they support Donald Trump. 19% said they support the Palestinians in the conflict with Israel. 19% said they support the Palestinians. There are no Palestinians. But the fact that they answer, yes, we support them. How low, how evil. What scum! 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 Scum is, you know something? I'm insulting scum. Now, with this situation here, we have Donald Trump convicted on 34 counts. You know, it is really something. It is really something. Those laws that Donald Trump was convicted on have been on the books for 40, 50 years in the state of New York. Not one person was ever charged the way Donald Trump was charged. 40, 50 years, New York State has 20 million residents. Not one person was ever charged with anything remotely similar to the way Donald Trump was charged. Not one. They said he committed a misdemeanor in order to commit a felony, a federal felony. He committed a misdemeanor to defraud in a federal, I mean, twisting and this and that to try to find a way to get him on a felony. I mean, the most convoluted crap that could ever be put together. No one has ever undergone that type of indictment and prosecution. No one. And the evil, lowlife, mentally retarded district attorney of Manhattan, and he is mentally retarded. The mentally retarded district attorney of Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, he lets all the murderers out, all the rapists, all the murderers. They're going around, they're running around, destroying the whole city. He doesn't bother with them. He focuses, his whole office's attention is focused on this kangaroo court, this joke of a prosecution against Donald Trump. He ran for district attorney promising that he was going to get Donald Trump one way or another. And he meant it. And so you have a jury pool in Manhattan, which voted 89% for Joe Biden and 88% for Hillary Clinton. 88% for Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump, 89% for Joe Biden against Donald Trump. And by the way, that doesn't mean Trump got the other 12%. 88%, Trump only got 4%. The other voters voted for the other left-wing crazy candidates, running. Trump got only 4% of the vote in Manhattan. And 4% one time, 5%, I believe, the next time. And he's going to, in a jury pool like that, he's going to get a fair trial? Are you kidding me?
Why didn't his lawyers file to get the court moved to a different part of New York State?
They did.
Upstate.
They did. No, they did. They filed a motion for change of venue. It was denied. All the judges, who are they going to appeal to? All the judges on the higher appeal courts are all left-wing Democrats in New York. You've had nothing but left-wing Democrats in office, so all the judges they've appointed and all the judges elected, the ones that are elected, are all left-wing Democrats because all the voters in New York are left-wing Democrats. And then the ones that are appointed are left-wing Democrats because every governor, everybody on all levels of government have been Democrats for decades in New York. This is like getting tried in the Soviet Union. I mean, the whole thing is just a jury where two of the jurors are lawyers. Two of his jurors were lawyers. You put lawyers on a jury, and you know lawyers are notoriously left-wing. Most lawyers are notoriously left-wing. The American Bar Association, all notoriously left-wing. You can be disbarred for not recognizing transgenders and for not using the transgender terms. If you call someone him or her or he or she, you can be disbarred for that in New York. That's how left-wing the attorneys are. And you put two attorneys like this on Trump's jury, and he ran out of peremptory challenges. Peremptory challenges are the challenges where you don't have to show cause. When you challenge a jury, you say that I don't want this juror. You're allowed a certain number that you can eliminate without giving a reason. He ran out of them, and I mean, they really put him up against the wall and gave him a Soviet trial. This was a Soviet Bolshevik trial. Everyone in that courtroom was against him from the moment he walked into that courtroom. The judge and his whole family are lifelong Democrats and donors to left-wing Democrat causes. Oh, I know. They're going to put that aside to show their fairness and objectivity when it comes to the trial, because after all, you're innocent until proven guilty. Oh, yeah, right. The district attorney, the judge, everyone in that courtroom are all extreme left Democrats who are elected as left-wing Democrats, who give money to left-wing Democrats, who spent their life campaigning for left-wing Democrats, who have expressed hatred for Donald Trump on endless occasions. And he's going to get a fair trial in a situation like that? Are you joking? If they accused him of mass murder, he would have been convicted in front of that jury. If they had accused him of causing an earthquake in Nepal, he would have been convicted on that charge too in front of that jury. Took the jury 1 day to convict him on 34 counts. Usually, by the way, even if you have just 3 or 4 count, sometimes takes several days for a jury to deliberate and come to decision. And oh, this was so easy. This was 2 minutes. They convicted him on everything. It wasn't there was no real trial here. There was nothing here.
If you remember, he was going to be charged in federal court, and the Fed said there's no case here. He didn't break any laws.
The Southern District of New York, which I was prosecuted under when I was in the Jewish Defense League, that is the federal jurisdiction with the best U.S. attorneys, the best federal prosecutors in the federal system. At least it was in my day. And they're the ones that would have that were presented this. They wanted to present this case to them because these are federal. They claim these are federal charges, and the Fed said no way. And the Feds who hate him in the Southern District of New York, they're all leftists. The left-wing federal prosecutors said there's no case here. This is ridiculous. This is a joke. They said no way. There's nothing here. The left-wing federal prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan said there's no case here. And so the local state district attorney decides to try to charge him on federal charges. Who ever heard of this? You're being charged in state court on federal charges by saying, yes, it's a misdemeanor, but it's a misdemeanor in furtherance of a federal crime, even though the Fed said there's no case here and there's nothing to this. And meanwhile, the late Joe Biden should be put on trial together with Kamala Harris, not for the charges that we hear in Fox News and all that. No, that's child's play. They should be put on trial for treason, for letting millions of dangerous, illegal, hostile third world aliens across the border to invade the country and destroy the country. They should be charged with treason. They should be charged with treason for betraying Israel, when God clearly says in the Bible, if you betray Israel, I will destroy you, God says in the Bible. God says that he will destroy nations that go against Israel. There are dozens of prophecies in the Bible about what happens to nations that dare go against Israel. He should be charged with treason together with Kamala Harris. The only defense he would have is, I didn't know what I was doing. Which now is true. He doesn't know what he did, but he was always a political prostitute. The lowest of the low. The lowest of the low. Even a prostitute like Kamala Harris, when she was a hooker, she had more integrity, and she was a hooker, by the way. She had more integrity than him, and she was a hooker. She sold her body to get ahead in San Francisco. She was 40 years old, sleeping with the 80-year-old mayor of San Francisco. That's how she got her appointment, her first appointment into city government and her clause into city government, because she had no qualifications and no intelligence. And then she was a hooker. And then she became district attorney of Manhattan and did what Alvin Bragg does. He let all the criminals go, everybody go, and the crime rate in San Francisco went through the ceiling when she was a district attorney in San Francisco. Now, when she was Attorney General of California, she did the same wonderful thing in California that she did for San Francisco. Destroyed the state. Let all the criminals go. And American Jews, who are supposed to be a light unto the nations and a holy nation and a nation of priests. That's what the Bible says Jews are commanded to be. And let me say something. The Jews in Israel are all of those things. The heroic young Jews. When that Nazi attack took place on October 7th of last year, right away, 500,000 young Jews ran to join the army. and say, we're ready to fight. You tell us we're ready to go. Like lions, heroic. Those are the young Jews of Israel. We just need leaders who will be as good as the people in Israel. In Israel, the polling results are the opposite of America. Look at the situation here. In Israel, Barack Hussein Osama had a 3% approval rating in Israel. 3% of Israeli Jews said they give him a positive approval. Everybody hated him. Everybody hates Joe Biden. Overwhelmingly, they support Donald Trump, the Jews of Israel. The Jews, they don't know that the Trump plan is actually planned also for a Palestinian terrorist state, unfortunately, because they're to the right of that. By the way, Israeli Jews, 5%, only 5% of American Jews are against the so-called Palestinian state. I don't think 5% of Israeli Jews support a Palestinian terrorist state. I don't even think it's 5%. Even the left now doesn't advocate that in Israel. That's Israeli Jews, right-wing, patriotic, Jews who are loyal to the Jewish state. Now, there's 7 million Jews like that in Israel. Compare that to American Jews. You couldn't have a more incredible difference. You couldn't possibly have a more incredible difference. Israeli Jews, by the way, are the only Western country that have a strong natural birth rate. You know, Israeli women have an average of 4 to 5 babies. Israeli women. America has become now, white America, especially the white majority of America, become just like the Europeans now, negative population growth. More people die every year than are born. Negative population growth. That's the future of every Western country, except Israel. In Israel, they have a bigger population. They have a bigger population growth every year than the Arabs, than the Arab Muslims. Their birth rate is higher than the birth rate of the Arab Muslims, and especially the religious Jews, and especially the Jews in Judea and Samaria that we support, that J.T.F. supports. Are you going to be part of that 5% of American Jews? Or are you going to be part of the 95% of American Jews who won't say they oppose a Palestinian terrorist state? Are you going to be part of that 95%? The 90% of American Jews who voted for Roosevelt when he murdered 6 million Jews during the Holocaust, the 78% that voted for Barack Hussein Osama, who tried to destroy Israel, who was an open black Muslim Jew hater, meeting with Louis Farrakhan and going to Farrakhan's Nazi rallies, and 78% of American Jews vote for that? Are you going to be part of that? Or are you going to be part of the Jews, the Jewish heroes, who have come to reclaim the land of Israel, who have come to bring final redemption to the Jews and to the righteous Gentiles in fulfillment of biblical prophecy? Which side are you going to be part of? If you're in the middle, if you're going to be just apathetic and, well, I don't know, if you're going to be like that, you're useless. Useless. A Jew who lives their life without helping Israel and without doing for the Jewish people, you're better off if you were never born. You'd be better off if you were never born. Because you're in this world to support your fellow Jews and to support Israel. That's what God put you here for. That's your purpose in life, like it or not. And righteous Gentiles, the greatest blessing you can get is to back Israel. The righteous Gentiles understand that. The evangelical Christians understand. By the way, the Republicans in the Congress are passing resolutions supporting Israel against the Hague, against all these other things. Republicans in the Congress are doing this while the Jewish members of Congress, their families, their billionaire families, are funding the protests against Israel. Like Dan Goldman, the congressman from Bethel Park, from Brooklyn. His family funds the protests at all these universities where they call for the destruction of Israel. His family is funding it. And Pritzker, the governor, that hideous governor of Illinois, his family is funding all of these Nazi protests where they call for death to the Jews and support the Hamas terrorists. Which side are you on? You better pick sides. You better pick sides, because apathy isn't going to cut it. Apathy will not do it. You're going to drop dead one of these days. All of us will. And when you face your maker, when you face God, he's going to ask you, what did you do? Our great J.T.Fers who have been helping us, you have an answer. You do have an answer. I don't know what you do in the rest of your life, and that will also count. But at least on the level of Israel, you'll have an answer if you help Israel and if you help the heroic hilltop youth. There are two ways you can help the heroic hilltop youth. One is you can go to our main Hebrew page, hayamin.org. Everything is in Hebrew there. Almost everything's in Hebrew there, but there's a donate button in English on top. Big donate button in English on top. Click on the donate button in English, and in several minutes, easily and conveniently, you can donate and help the heroic hilltop youth. If you don't want to do it online, you can do it with checks and money orders made out to J.T.F., and you send it to J.T.F. P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York, 11365. The Hilltop Youth are giving you a chance to save yourself. They're doing more for you than you're doing for them. They're giving you a chance to save yourself and to give purpose to your life. Because life is not about, I'm just going to enjoy myself and I'm just going to make money and leave it sitting in the bank and I'm just going to, that's a selfish, terrible life. A real life is working to make this a better world. That's living. That's a true life. And the Hilltop Youth devote their entire lives to that. And that's why we must support them. And why we must act now against the so-called Palestinian state and must act to defeat the late Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the cackling hyena Kamala Harris with a self-hating Jewish husband, to defeat them and to help Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut Party in Israel, and most of all, to help the heroic Hilltop Youth. If you do that, then you're doing good. And that's all God asks of us, to do the best we can to make this a better world. If we do that, then we have a life with purpose and meaning. And yes, the day will come when all Jews will be like the Hilltop Youth, when there'll be a great awakening of the Jewish people. That day will come. We don't know how exactly. We saw on October 7th, tragically, one of the ways that it's going to happen. But the Jews are going to have a great awakening. They're going to wake up. The prophets in the Bible all unanimously promise us this, that there's going to be a great awakening and God will miraculously save the Jews. And then the Jews will become the light unto the nations and the holy nation, nation of priests. And all the evil people will face justice against them. And the righteous people will triumph. Righteousness and justice and truth will triumph. And there'll be a whole new world, a whole new beautiful world that will exist beyond anything we can imagine. That's what God promises us in the Bible. And we know that everything God promises in the Bible will come true because we see with our own eyes all the things unfolding for the past 76 years since the Jews returned to Israel and the Jewish state was recreated after 2,000 years. Everything that's promised in the Bible comes true. Everything. You got to be blind not to see it. And you got to be blind not to want to be a part of it. Join with us. Let's work together to save the world. And in the end, remember, the good guys are going to win. The bad guys are going to get justice. This is going to be a wonderful world, but we want to prevent a lot of suffering and terrible tragedy before then. That's what we're trying to do here. And that's what all of us are in this world to do. If we do that, then we're fulfilling our purpose in life. David?
Well, if I were in charge of Israel, if I were the prime minister, within 3 weeks, all of Gaza would have been the world's largest parking lot attached to the world's largest drive-in movie theater. None of this nonsense would be going on. You wouldn't even give your enemies, the vocal enemies, the ones who free Palestine, you wouldn't even give them a chance to get together. A war is you give up lives, gain ground, and you want to destroy your enemy, kill as many as you can, destroy all their structures as fast as you can to save your own lives. This selected bombing, and we don't want to hurt this one, and we don't want to hurt that one, that means it becomes a war of attrition. And how do you win a war of attrition? It just goes on and on and on. So you need a leader who thinks like I do. As far as Trump goes, of course, I agree with Hayem that this was all made up nonsense. And the judge, when he charged the jury, he had to twist the law so that nobody even understood what he was saying, other than he was practically begging them to come up with some way to find Trump guilty. Well, did anybody find Hillary Clinton guilty when she destroyed all those documents on her BlackBerry? Did anybody find Bill Clinton guilty when he paid $800,000 in hush money to Paula Jones? Why is it only Donald Trump? What is the left so afraid of? Why don't they let the people choose? Let the people make up their own mind. Don't try to keep him off the ballot. Now, I found out my state, Arizona, which is probably one of many, I don't know, but it's definitely in Arizona. If you're a convicted felon, you cannot be on the ballot. So does that mean he's automatically going to lose Arizona because of that? And don't forget, even though people are mad now, quite a few New York City people said they've had enough of the Democrat Party. That's now. By the time the election rolls around, they won't be mad anymore. In fact, nobody's mad anymore at this stage, just a few days after the verdict. And it'll all be forgotten. It'll be swept under the rug. And those people who vote left, and I don't understand you voting left. Do you like gas at $3.50 a gallon? When Trump was, that's the price here. Actually, it's $3.55. When Trump was president, we paid $2.09 for name brand and $1.99 for the off brands. Do you like steak at well, the sale price here is $6.99 a pound now when the holidays come, like Memorial Day or the 4th of July. It was $4.77. Sometimes it was even $3.99 when it was on sale for a holiday. Well, Trump was president. So do you like paying that difference? How about eggs? We heard all that problem with the eggs, and the eggs were tainted, and the price of eggs was $6 a dozen. Now it's about $3.50 a dozen. Well, it was $1.99 when Trump was president, and it was $1.27 on sale for a dozen eggs when Trump was president. And sometimes the sale price was 99 cents. 1 week. This price is ridiculous. I don't even know. They should have just given it away for free. It was 3 cents for a dozen eggs. And 6 weeks later, it was 24 cents for a dozen eggs. This is while Trump was president.
I just want to mention, by the way, that we do have another candidate running for president who's an environmentalist, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who, by the way, is a mental case, complete mental case. And you tell me if you don't think he's a mental case after I tell you what he said. He's an environmentalist. And he said what we should do. In 2014, he said that gas prices should be at least $12 a gallon, at least. And recently, in the past 2 years, he advocated $25 a gallon gas prices. $25 a gallon gas prices. Before, he was saying $12 a gallon, which also, by the way, $12 a gallon, you'll have a Great Depression in the United States. That's the whole American economy will collapse literally overnight if you have gas prices at that price. That's the end of the American economy. That's it. You will see a crash in the stock market like we haven't seen since the 1930s if that happens. That's the end of the American economy. And this maniac, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his environmental policies, though, are really a reflection of the environmentalism that we see from the late Joe Biden and from Kamala Harris. They're also environmentalists. That's what they want. They want high prices. This is what they believe in. This is what they advocate. I mean, so the economy, the economy cannot recover as long as you have people like this in the White House. And if anybody is considering, if you're considering voting for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I mean, you belong in Bellevue. Now, I know that people around the country don't know what Bellevue is. Now it's probably filled with illegal aliens because now every hospital, every home is with illegal aliens. But it's a mental asylum in New York. That's where you belong. If you want to vote for Robert, I think you belong in Bellevue if you want to vote for the late Joe Biden, in my opinion. David, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, that was good. Jump in anytime. You mentioned the transgenderism. Well, at Planet Fitness, that's the gym I go to. And we were hemming and hawing if we're going to leave or not leave because of this. And the final straw was at one of the Planet Fitnesses, not mine, probably not even in my state. It's probably maybe Wisconsin or Pennsylvania because it's a national chain. At one Planet Fitness, a father took his daughter to work out. And she goes into the woman's locker room. And I don't know how old she is. Let's say she's 10. Actually, someone that young should not be lifting weights because you have soft cartilage that hasn't hardened into bone yet. And you lift weights, you're going to be compressing that cartilage. So maybe your arms will end up a little shorter. Maybe your body won't be as tall as it could have been. You might end up a half an inch shorter than you would have been if you didn't lift weights. Usually about 16 is the age where you've already hardened into bone. And then it's acceptable to start lifting weights. Well, this father took his daughter, hopefully just for cardio, and she goes into the locker room and comes back out. Daddy, there's a man in the woman's locker room. So he goes to the front desk and complains, and they tell him there's nothing they can do. It's coming from corporate because they had a far left wing CEO who was forced to step down, but they hired a guy to the left of him who's the new CEO. And he was confronted by shareholders saying, what about profitability over political correctness? And he said, no, we can't violate people's rights. The thing is, what about this little girl's rights? And the father said that to the manager of the gym. The thing is, the manager of the gym is so low level in this corporate structure, he'd probably be afraid to even bring it up, push it up the line from the higher manager to higher manager. So they said, well, this person has rights. And he said, my daughter has rights. And they said, there's nothing we can do about it. But I was thinking, your daughter has rights. Let's say at each gym there's 300 women. What about the rights of 300 women over one freak? What happened to the majority rules? That shows how backwards and upside down this country is. And that sealed the fate for us. We're just waiting for the end of the month. And we're going to be going to a smaller gym. It's one I really don't want to go to. I like being at Planet Fitness. And the manager at this gym, I said, let me know if there's a woman in there. I'll throw him into the parking lot. And he said he'd like to help me, but he can't. So I know where he stands. But something breaks there, like the ropes that you use for tricep pull downs or other exercises. If they break, he doesn't even have the power to order a new one. He has to go to the area manager. So it shows how low level each gym manager is. And so we made up our minds. July 1, we will be at a small gym that they have a chain of 3. And they don't have men's locker room, women's locker room. There's a little changing area where you don't get undressed. It's like you take your coat off in the wintertime and put it in a cubby hole. If you remember that term from elementary school. And bathrooms, there's 2 bathrooms, 1 person at a time, so it doesn't matter who goes in because you close the door and lock it. So that's the gym we'll be going to. It doesn't have the equipment, all the equipment I want, but it does have 1 or 2 that Planet Fitness doesn't have. So it's an exchange, a change off. But that's Planet Fitness. They double down and triple down on their stance, even though the shareholders are not happy. Well, the shareholders, if you're not happy with this policy, you should be selling your shares. Sometimes there's no alternative, and you have to stay with that company. But like Target, the alternative is Walmart. Land O'Lakes butter, they took the Indian princess off. The alternative is Challenge butter or the store brand butter.
If you're eating butter, you should first of all, you shouldn't eat butter at all. But
Well, I'm talking in
all,
general terms. We all know
all
you're a healthy
food,
eater.
all food, all food. If you're Jewish, all food should only be kosher. Only. Very, very important. All food should be kosher. And butter is poison. Butter is really, really bad for you. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, I won't eat butter. I'll have Hostess cupcakes instead. And then you have people like Bill Maher, who's been coming down on the left, but he's still voting for Joe Biden, and he's begging everybody to vote for Joe Biden. I don't understand this. This shows the mixed up Jewish brain, but it's not just Jews. Well, look at Robert De Niro. Both Maher and De Niro said if Trump gets elected, he's going to do away with democracy and this will be our last election. Did they forget that Trump was president in 2016? Actually, he took office in 2017. And he didn't make that the last election, although I wouldn't have been surprised if Joe Biden did under orders from Barack Obama.
By the way, Bill Maher gave $1 million contribution to Obama's campaign in 2008. $1 million contribution.
Yeah, I just saw a video. I didn't watch it yet, but the little headlines and a picture from just a still of one of the video shots shows a black guy, and Bill Maher's begging him to vote for Biden, and the guy doesn't want to vote for Biden. So I'm going to watch that video later this afternoon.
By the way,
And
I'm meeting black and Latino people who are voting for Trump. I didn't see this last time. I never saw
no,
this last time.
because they keep voting Democrat year after year, no matter what the office is, they vote Democrat 100% of the time. And their plight is no better than it was before they started voting Democrat.
They're voting for Trump for one simple reason. The economy was better when he was president.
And yes, and
That's
more
it. That's
people
the
work.
reason. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I see signs in Spanish for Trump. I never saw that before. Signs in Spanish in New York City for Trump. And I see black people. I couldn't believe it. I saw a black woman on the subway with a Trump button on. I couldn't believe it.
I'm waiting for the woman down the block who moved from California to get out of the insanity of California. And she puts up in 2020, riding with Biden. I want to see if she puts that sign up. Now, if she is she happy with the way things are? Does she like paying $3.55 a gallon of gas instead of $2?
She should pay $25 a gallon.
And speaking about gas, in California, they are considering charging because of all the electric cars and all the hybrids that get such good gas mileage. They are thinking of charging 30 cents a mile for every mile you travel. Now, how's that going to work out if you are traveling 40 miles to work in the morning and 40 miles back? If you are driving 10,000 miles a year, if you're driving more than 10,000 miles a year, what if you have to drive a lot for your job? You're some kind of salesman, or you're an area manager and you have to drive from state to state to state, which also means up and down the California state for all the places your company owns. How much are you going to pay in a final bill at the end of the year? I don't even know how they're going to do this with chips, maybe, but 30 cents a mile. And they want to boost it to 40 and then 50 cents a mile eventually. So let's see how, I guess that means the value of my house is going to go up because a lot more people are going to flee California and come here.
If the late Joe Trump is reelected, we're going to see a lot of national crazy things that are going to happen. There'll be no escape. I mean,
Joe Trump, you mean Joe Biden?
I mean Joe Biden, the late Joe Biden. Yeah, the late Joe Biden. If late Joe Biden is reelected, um, then we're going to see this crazy stuff on a federal level. He is deliberately trying to destroy the energy industry. He has
He's
re
deliberately trying to destroy the whole country.
he has revived Iran's nuclear energy. Iran now has tremendous new exports of oil. They're exporting 4 million barrels a day, are the Iranians. He saved the Iranian economy. The late Joe Biden did this.
He's also going to approve their nuclear program so they can have nuclear bombs. That's going to make the Sunni Arabs very happy with us.
Now the Sunni Arabs are no better, but anyway, but under
No,
war,
but they are at odds with the Shia.
yeah,
So
but in the end, believe me, in the end, they'll all they'll be happy to see anybody who does anything against the great Satan America and the little Satan Israel. They'll still be happy.
and it's always good news when the woke turn on each other and eat each other's lunch. Here's a University of Illinois, Chicago professor for 17 years, Barbara J. Rissman. Need I say more? Woke activist, loves Black Lives Matter, loves Antifa, loves the feminist movement, and she is one plain Jane, let me tell you. And now she has to retire because she's Jewish. She can't even go on the campus. It's not safe for her. And the management, the dean, the chancellor, they don't want her there because she's going to be looking for trouble because of all the free Palestine idiots. And did you see the march in Manhattan I think it was Manhattan, free Palestine, and then queers for Palestine. And then they ran into Arabs coming the other way. And the queers for Palestine ran into Arabs who let them know what they think of being queer. In Arab countries, they take queers and throw them off the fifth floor. That seems to be their favorite floor. But I saw them elevate a queer once on one of those cranes that build skyscrapers, and they dropped them off that. That was probably about 10 floors. And thanks to Uncle Joe's economy, we have these. I read smaller lists. This is a much larger list. Walmart is closing 23 stores. Target is closing 9 stores. Walgreens is closing 900 stores, mostly in blue states. Bed Bath & Beyond is closing its remaining 360 stores. Lowe's has closed 50 stores. Macy's is closing 150 stores, mainly in blue states. Starbucks has closed 61 stores in blue states. Home Depot is closing 15 stores. Dollar Tree is closing 1,000 stores. Foot Locker is closing 400 stores. The Gap is closing 350 stores. Party City is closing 24 stores, blue states. Big Lots is closing stores in California and Colorado. Burger King is closing 400 stores. Best Buy is closing 20 stores. Boston Market is closing 27 stores. Kmart only has 2 stores left. Sears closed all but 22 stores. You remember Sears? Sears was ahead of their time. You could buy in a catalog and mail order the way it's done today, but this is decades ago. But they lost their way due to management that grows old like fossils.
By the way, you mentioning blue states, red states. You know why they do that? They started that in the 70s, that term, blue states and red states. Why do they call the Democrat states blue states and the Republican states red states?
I
They
don't
don't,
know. It should be the other way around.
right, because they don't want to use red states for the Democrats because then people will understand the Democrats are communists. So they deliberately put the red thing on the Republicans and they make that the blue states or the Democrat. It is the other way around. The Democrats are communists.
It's finally that some people are finally starting to call them communists. Ashadine and myself, we've been calling them communists, not liberals or progressives, since the end of Bill Clinton's reign. Wells Fargo is closing over 60 branches. U.S. Bank is closing 23 branches. Kroger, which is the parent company to a lot of grocery chains, is closing 413 stores. And Bank of America is closing 20 branches. This is Biden's economy. Build back better. Well, is it better for you? And if it's not, what are you voting for him for? And another thing is I've heard people say, well, they're voting for Trump, but then they'll jump back to the Democrat Party down ticket. Well, if Trump becomes president and everybody's a Democrat under him, he's not going to be able to move. He'll be in constant impeachment, constant charges, constant convictions. It'll be endless. in Congress, like we saw two impeachments. They wanted to impeach him after he was out of office. And the Republicans are silent. One Republican said, we're going to have to start doing this to Democrats. Yeah, that'll be the day. You're going to have to go home and find your spine first. And we're filming this show June 5th. Tomorrow is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Most of you know the story, so I'm just going to touch on it. But 7,000 ships, which includes landing craft. There were about 5,000 ships. And they opened fire, and the battleship fire went over the Germans' heads, and it really did almost no damage. What they should have done was fill the whole place with smoke. And the Americans could have climbed up, and nobody would have even seen them coming, unless you could catch a quick glimpse in between breezes. I think a lot more Americans would have survived had they fired smoke into the cliffs instead, or even at the foot of the cliffs, so that the smoke would rise. But that's just my opinion. What do I know? And 2,800 Americans, British, and Canadians died on that day. But you all know the horrible time they had on Omaha Beach, which was the 29th Division. And it was a horrible time. One German claims, because the German machine gun shot 1,200 rounds a minute compared to our 50 caliber, which was 500 rounds. The 50 caliber shot bigger bullets, and one of the every four bullets was an armor-piercing shell. But 1,200 rounds a minute, and they were trying to teach our army that its bark is worse than its bite. Well, its bite was far worse than its bark or anything you could imagine. And one German soldier, and the ones in the cliffs on Omaha Beach, these were not top-line soldiers. These were mostly older drag second-line soldiers. And they thought this infantry division, the closest one was 20 miles back where they were always stationed. When D-Day came, they were up front. So they ran into a buzzsaw. And this one guy on his machine gun claims he killed 2,000 Americans, getting them so they couldn't even step foot on land. He killed them while they were in the landing craft. Americans claim he killed 1,000. So the truth is somewhere in between the two. This one guy, he was taken prisoner later that day. And as formidable as the defenses were, you remember Patton saying, fixed defenses are for the mindless. We breached their defenses all along off the five beaches, and we were pushing inland by noon. So as formidable as that defense was, and as many deaths as it caused, we were still moving inland by noon. The attack started at 5 in the morning. So a few hours held up, and then even at the worst spot, we were moving inland. So there's very few D-Day survivors left. For those of you who gave your lives and those of you who survived, we salute you. Ryan?
In your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. We're trying to give you a roadmap to making this a better world. And remember, in the end, it's going to be a better world. We're going to win. I want people to remember we are the ultimate optimists, especially in Judaism. Judaism believes we're going to defeat death in the end. Judaism believes it's going to be eternal life, that we're going to defeat death in the end. You can't get more optimistic than that. You know, I had a debate with, I'll discuss this maybe on the program after it's released. It's in Hebrew. I had a debate with Israel's leading atheist, the most famous atheist, like Madeleine Murray O'Hair. Remember she was the big famous atheist in America. You remember her?
I remember, but I guess younger people wouldn't remember.
Yeah. Well, this guy, he's the most famous. He does video after video after attacking Judaism. He's just a complete militant atheist. And he's the most famous atheist in Israel. I had a debate with him, and it was, wow, it was one hell of a debate. And the guy who was moderating the debate was an agnostic. So he was, of course, on the side of the atheist. And, you know, we had quite a debate. But in the end, I even won over the agnostic when I said, who would you want to be right? The guy who says we're all going to die in the grave and it's all going to be over? Or the guy who tells you we're going to have eternal life? Not who's right, who you believe is right. You don't want me to be right? You don't want there to be eternal life? You don't
That
want
was
me to be the
brilliant.
one that's right? And he said, wow, he says, that I really can connect to, he said. That's what he said. He says, that I can really connect to. And this was a guy who was on the other side when we started the debate. But anyway, just one out of many things in my world of trying to get Israelis to be normal and to wake up, because we got to prepare the world for the final redemption, which will come. But we got to make it happen. If we do good things, if we do good things, great things can come from the even from the little good things we do. Sometimes great things can come from them. So let's be determined to act and act quickly on behalf of justice and righteousness and truth. For J.T.F. until next week, this is Chaim ben Pesach, and for David ben Moshe, Shalom.